Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're diving headfirst into something that, well, it gets talked about almost like magic in the business world: business intelligence, BI. You hear it everywhere, don't you? New York,
Yeah.
Nairobi, doesn't matter. Promises of these fancy BI platforms, AI, dashboards, all delivering instant clarity, smarter decisions. It's really become this kind of modern corporate silver bullet. Data is the new oil, they say. But then you have to wonder, with all this tech, why isn't every single global company, perfectly optimized? Why the struggles? So our mission in this deep dive is to really unpack that narrative. We're going to look into what some are calling the great business intelligence myth. We want to find out why just having data isn't automatically saving these global companies. We'll dig into the hidden challenges, maybe some surprising truths behind using data effectively. So you can walk away informed, sure, but also with a fresh perspective on how insight really happens. Okay, let's unpack this. So let's start with that allure, the promise. The myth suggests this really seductive idea, right? Once a company invests in these platforms, dashboards, predictive analytics, AI, the works boom, the whole organization gets instant clarity. Decisions just get smarter, like overnight. You can picture it. A big global retailer, maybe operating in 40 countries. They're expecting these unified insights, whether it's sales in Shanghai, supply chains in Sao Paulo, or, I don't know, customer loyalty in Berlin. One seamless view.
It's a really compelling picture, isn't it?
Hmm.
But what's fascinating when you look at the research is the huge gap between that promise and, well, the reality on the ground for many global firms. What we're seeing in the sources, it isn't that these companies are struggling because they lack information. Not at all.
Right. They're often swimming in data.
Exactly. The real challenge is how they use it, or maybe how they fail to use it well. In practice, you see data streams that are just fragmented, different regions on incompatible systems, maybe.
Old legacy stuff still kicking around.
Precisely. Or even the same system, but set up differently locally so they don't quite mesh. And then you add the human layer. Local teams looking at global dashboards, but through their own cultural viewpoint. Assumptions shaping decisions just as much as the numbers. There's research, Papatheochris and colleagues, showing that integrating across cultures and business units, that's a way bigger hurdle than the tech itself. So global BI often stumbles not because the algorithm failed, but because human context, they just resist that kind of neat standardization.
That's such a key point, human context hitting the tech promise. And it's not just different systems, it's different worldviews almost.
Which brings us right to the first big myth we need to tackle, this idea that BI creates a single version of the truth.
Oh,
Executives seem to love that phrase, don't they? The idea that ambiguity just vanishes. What do the sources say about that?
yeah, that's a central question. Does BI really unify? It's interesting. Multiple studies, like one by Markel and Santos, actually argue the opposite. Often what these BI tools end up doing is reflecting, sometimes even magnifying, the silos and biases that already exist in the organization.
Magnifying them. Wow.
Think about a big financial services firm trying to get that single truth on risk globally. We saw this example where their analytics dashboards, meant to unify the view, actually gave contradictory insights.
From the same system. Well, yes, but different regions, say London versus Singapore, they were prepping the data slightly differently. Maybe defining a risk event not quite the same way,
Yeah.
or handling currency conversions differently. So the system, instead of smoothing things out, it actually amplified those existing differences.
Yeah.
Made the fragmentation clearer maybe, but didn't solve it.
Contradictory insights from the same system. Okay, that definitely busts the single truth myth. It's like you said, a mirror reflecting the cracks, not a magic wand fixing them. Now, this gets really interesting because it challenges another core belief. Myth number 2. More data means better decisions. Sounds so logical, doesn't it? More info should mean smarter choices.
It absolutely sounds logical. It's almost intuitive in our data-obsessed world, but the sources show it's not always true. Often it's kind of the opposite. Take this example of a global shipping company. Good intentions, right? They rolled out these advanced AI dashboards across Europe and Asia.
To give everyone more data, optimize routes.
Exactly. Give them more, faster. But what actually happened? Employees just got overwhelmed. Information overload.
Too much noise.
Too much noise. Too many charts, too many metrics popping up, too many real-time feeds to actually process effectively. Leelavathy and others noted this. They said, data abundance without interpretive frameworks often reduces decision-making speed.
Reduces speed, not what you expect.
No. Think of it like cooking. Someone gives you one clear, tested recipe. Pretty straightforward. Now imagine someone dumps a whole library of cookbooks on your counter hundreds and says, everything you need is in there.
Yeah, I'd probably just order pizza.
Exactly. That's data overload without the framework. You need ways to filter, prioritize, understand what actually matters. Sometimes, fewer, really well contextualized insights are much more powerful, more actionable than just an endless flood of charts. Too much data without structure. It can paralyze decisions, not speed them up.
The cookbook library, that's a great way to put it. So quantity isn't always quality with data insights. Too much can actually get in the way. That's a big shift in thinking for many. Okay, let's move to myth #3. This one's about leveling the playing field. BI vendors often push this idea that their tools democratize access. Global teams, Tokyo or Tunis, doesn't matter. They all get the same visibility into performance. The implication is technology is the great equalizer. Is it really powerful enough to just flatten out centuries of, hierarchy and cultural ways of doing things?
Well, if you connect that to the bigger picture, it becomes pretty clear that technology alone, no matter how slick, it just can't erase those deep-seated cultural and management differences overnight. It's almost wishful thinking. Wayne Carey highlights something crucial here. Culture shapes not just how data is read, but maybe more importantly, whether it's trusted at all.
Trusted. Okay, tell me more about that.
Think about a market, maybe, where there's a really strong tradition of deferring to your manager. Respect for authority is paramount. An employee there might see a dashboard showing one thing, but if their manager's gut says something else, they might instinctively lean towards the manager.
Even if the data seems clear.
Yes. Or they might even feel questioning the dashboard is like questioning their boss, which could be, culturally frowned upon. But then flip it in another market, challenging your manager with data might be seen as proactive good business. Numbers carry inherent weight there. So you can launch the same dashboard globally, but how much it actually influences decisions. That's going to vary wildly based on these ingrained cultural norms. BI can't just magically delete management culture or power dynamics.
That makes perfect sense. And it's a bit sobering, really. So it's not just what the data says. It's who's reading it, what cultural filter they're using, what the organizational context is. This leads us right into what the sources seem to be calling the human factor. It sounds like BI success or failure boils down less to algorithms and more to governance, culture, trust between people. Is that the emerging picture?
Absolutely. That's a really consistent finding across almost all the research we looked at. The human element is paramount. It keeps coming up. For instance, Bano and colleagues, they show that diversity and inclusion in how AI is adopted actually improves trust in the BI systems.
How so?
Well, when employees from different backgrounds with different viewpoints see themselves reflected in the whole process, the design, the rollout, how it's interpreted, they're much more likely to buy in. To trust the output, it stops being this thing pushed on us and becomes more like our intelligence system.
Makes sense, right?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Ownership. And then there's the power dynamic aspect. Lazar points out that power struggles within organizations often dictate how these intelligence tools end up being used, or maybe not used. Imagine a new dashboard clearly shows some, let's say, inefficiencies in a really powerful regional division, one that historically calls the shots.
Uh-oh.
Right? The data might be perfect, clean, accurate, well-analyzed, but if that division feels threatened, they might fight back, subtly discredit the data, find reasons to ignore it, maybe just let it gather dust. And that's not a tech failure, is it? It's human, it's political, it's cultural. It basically stops the intelligence dead in its tracks. So yes, fundamentally it's about people, not just processors.
This has been incredibly eye-opening. It shows that BI is it's so much more than a tech solution. That whole global myth, instant clarity, universal truth, automatic intelligence, it seems to be giving way to something more, real, more sobering. Business intelligence, especially globally, it's a cultural and organizational project first, technology second. So, okay, we've busted some myths. What does this mean for actually making BI work in a real multinational company? What practical steps do the sources suggest?
To make it really work, a multinational absolutely needs a deliberate, human-centered approach, one that really acknowledges these complexities we've been talking about. The sources outline several key steps. It's not just about installing software. First, you absolutely have to harmonize data governance across borders. Meaning clear, consistent rules and practices for how data gets collected, stored, defined, managed everywhere. Like making sure sales revenue means the exact same thing in Shanghai as it does in São Paulo. Basic stuff, but critical. Without that foundation, any BI system is just going to keep spitting out confusing or contradictory results.
Okay, consistent definitions. Makes sense. What's next?
Second, leaders have got to acknowledge and genuinely respect cultural differences in how intelligence is interpreted. This isn't just, a nice-to-have soft skill. It's crucial for success. What looks like a clear, actionable insight in one culture might be met with suspicion or just ignored in another where maybe group consensus is more valued.
Right. So you need to tailor how you communicate.
Exactly. Tailor communication, tailor implementation strategies based on understanding those nuances. Third, and this one's really important, you need to train leaders to question dashboards, not just worship them.
Ah, foster critical thinking.
Yes, critical thinking over just blind acceptance. This means teaching leaders not just what the numbers say, but how they were generated, what assumptions are baked into the models, and crucially, what local knowledge, what qualitative stuff might be missing from that dashboard view.
So moving from the dashboard says X, we do X, to something more nuanced.
Precisely. More like, okay, the dashboard suggests X. Now let's talk about what X really means for us. Here, given these other local factors we know about, it builds that culture of intelligent skepticism.
Okay, governance, cultural awareness, critical thinking. What else?
Finally, companies really should treat BI not as a destination, like a project you finish, but as an evolving dialogue between people and machines. It's ongoing. It needs feedback loops, changes over time. It recognizes the tech as a tool, a powerful lens maybe, but human judgment, culture, trust, that's what polishes the lens. The intelligence isn't just in the data. It gets co-created through that interaction, people and machines working together.
Those steps sound really solid. Harmonize governance, respect culture, think critically, and treat it as a dialogue. But that third one, training leaders to question dashboards. In this age where being data-driven is like a religion, and maybe leaders feel pressured to just trust the numbers, how do you actually build that critical mindset? How do you make it okay to question the machine?
That definitely requires a shift, maybe a significant shift in leadership philosophy. It really has to start at the top with leadership by example. If senior leaders themselves are seen asking tough questions, constructively challenging assumptions, even admitting when a dashboard might not have the full picture, that sends a powerful message. It makes it safe for others.
Okay, modeling the behavior.
Yes. And then specific training can help. Not just training on how to read a dashboard, but training on how to interrogate it. You could use case studies, maybe, where relying solely on data led to bad outcomes. Or workshops where leaders get data that looks clear. But when you add cultural context or other info, the story changes completely. It's about building that muscle for critical inquiry, making sure they understand the limits, not just the power of the tools, empowering them to be intelligent users, not just passive receivers of information.
What a journey we've taken through the real world of business intelligence. It's so clear now that the power isn't just in the algorithms or the slick dashboards. It's really about how people engage with it, how they trust it, how they interpret it through their own unique cultural and organizational filters. It's much more human than we might have thought at the start.
Indeed. And our sources, collectively, they really sum it up nicely. The essence is this. In a global firm, business intelligence is not the light that simply reveals the truth. It is rather the lens through which people choose to see it. And like any lens, it must be polished by culture, trust, and judgment before any true clarity can emerge.
Wow, that's a really powerful thought to end on, the lens through which people choose to see it. So for you, our listener, maybe consider this. How might understanding these cultural lenses, this crucial human factor, the need for critical questioning, how might that change how you approach data in your own work, or even just, how you interpret information generally in a world that's just flooded with it? Something to think about. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.